moment you are not satisfied yourself. Naturally, because there are two things. I do not doubt your intentions at all. You know whatever happened was right. That is not bothering you. But how it happened, you are not very clear on this. Had you been clear yourself, you would have been able to satisfy others. So before you frame your question, you better be clear on what exactly is bothering some people, what is agitating their minds about this, what are the features of this question.
Most of the people really wanted to be just one of them. Shia goes towards the Ali and they say Amir Muawiyah was wrong. But we have taken a position which is in the middle. We want to respect also Hazrat Amir Muawiyah, and at the same time we consider that Hazrat Ali was the right Khalifa, so we should follow. So in the walk in the middle, it's really a very difficult path.
No, but if it is difficult for you, it was also difficult for those people at that time. Now you are looking back at Khilafah, as you have inherited the concept in a set, cut and finished form. At that time this was not the case at all. The things were in the formation. Conceive yourself of a situation, project yourself into a situation where a governor appointed by Hazrat Usman was far off from Medina, so much so that it took many days, many weeks in fact, to reach that part. And he was an appointed authority, and he did not know what happened in Medina after the death of Hazrat Usman. But the reports which reached him were of a very grievous nature, that he was gehraud and everybody was after him, and there were very important senior companions of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam at that time who did not act in time to defend Khalifa. These were his sentiments, and there was no set rule for the election of Khilafat like it is now in Jamaat Ahmediyya. Don't think that so much labor was lost on this or expended on this as it is in our time by Hazrat Muslim Maud, and he has done one of the greatest travels of his lifetime on Jamaat by compiling the whole issue in a very clear form and very clearly indicating to us the importance of Khilafat and how it should be preserved and the inherent dangers, how to avoid them, and then he has left behind a system for preservation. So this is one of the greatest things he did, and this justifies his being called a Muslim out. So this situation was not exactly like this in the time of Hazrat Usman or after him. So this is exactly what passed in the minds of Hazrat Muawiyah, which I have told you. So although he was ready after the election was made, it was not his contention that Hazrat Ali should be rejected as a Khalifa. His contention was that those who were responsible for the murder, they should be punished first. And then the rest would follow, the order would be established. And this was not done by Hazrat Ali Karamallah Wajh. Why? He knew the reason for it.
Sorry, what was the reason for it?
Hazrat Ali knew best. I don't know.
He already, history said that Hazrat Ali kept saying that he does not know the murderers and who are responsible.
Whatever it is, but the way Hazrat Muawiyah wanted this investigation to be conducted, and the way it was known that so and so were in the leading mischief mongers, and though the same names are handed down to us by history without any debate about their personalities and who they were, the identification was clear, and yet they were in the camp of Hazrat Ali Karamallahu Wajhahu. So that was a very disturbing situation. for a person who was given an authority by the Khalifatul Masih of the time, Khalifatul Rasul of the time. So how can you condemn him outright like this? There must be some margin of doubt left to him. Yes, please.
So now that the question has come up, this is really a question. As Your Holiness said, once Hazrat Ali became Khalifa, and if Hazrat Muawiyah had taken the position that Hazrat Ali is Khalifa, rightly kept it, and only had a difference of opinion about how the retaliation in respect of the murders of Usman.
But did I say that? I said, he said, I am prepared to accept you as a Khalifa if you do this. I didn't say that he accepted him as a Khalifa.
If he was mentally in that condition that the Khilafat of Hazrat Ali should be accepted, then
if you act according to this, take first qisas. Qisas was the question raised. And if you are agreeable on principle, then I will submit to you and do whatever you please. So that means he didn't accept him as a Khalifa, it was a conditional acceptance of him.
That appears to be not understandable at this point of time that we stand at that distance. But it is quite understandable when Azali says that now that the situation is disturbed and there is an absolute chaos, let the things settle down and then I can find out how this is.
Neither he nor you are understanding me correctly. This is the position of Hazrat Ali to Ahmadis is very clear. There is no shadow of doubt about his bona fides and his rights and his being a Khalifa Rashid, because if there were any previously in the minds of any other Muslims, Hazrat Masih Maud has made it clear once and for all for Ahmadiyya.
That's true.
So I am just putting the other side of the picture, not as a defense, but to tell you why even Hazrat Masih Maud has not rejected Hazrat Abu Muawiyah, Hazrat Muawiyah as an outright kafir or a munafiq. He has not. After all, there must be some reason.
Yes,
this is why to give someone a benefit of doubt is also a principle of dispensation of justice. So things were not as clear at that time as they are to you now. Nor everybody can think in the frame of mind which was given to Hazrat Muawiyah at that time. As I told you, he was appointed as governor of a far off place, province, and he was treated very kindly throughout the Khilafat of Hazrat Usman. So he entertained a very special bondage of love for him.
And he was a great administrator, no doubt.
No doubt. And so, when he hears all this, the rumors that the murderers were, number one, not checked in time. They were very important old companions of Hazrat Rasul Akram sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, who knew what was happening and were not moving in that direction, not doing anything. Now this is the most tricky part, not what happened later on. This part is in fact what disturbs me the most. And when you read Islam mein khilafat ka aghaaz, one is not genuinely satisfied as to the pre-murder situation. It still disturbs. There is something which is left out either by history or it has been distorted by the facts of by both parties. Something must have gone wrong somewhere, because the history which is carried down to us is not fully satisfying. At least to my conscience, it does not satisfy.
That is true.
The Nizam-e-Khilafat, as we understand now, and as we understand from the authority of the Holy Quran, how precious it is, and how under the very eyes of senior companions of our Prophet, this was heard, not like a shoot and run away murderer, but regularly, in so many days, a thing mischief was developing, and yet everybody seems to be paralyzed. Now this situation, I don't say it it is farthest from me to suggest that Hazrat Ali Karramallahu Wajhahu was responsible, because had he been responsible, Allah Ta'ala would not have made him a Khalifa. It was impossible. His innocence is positive. But the entire society of Medina was responsible. You can't take responsibility away from the shoulders of everyone altogether. And this was a very difficult situation for Hazrat Muawiyah. It was not like Hazrat Muslim Maud, the Imam of the time, who was guided by Allah, who had clarified that position for Hazrat Ali. For him, the whole situation was very soupy and suspicious, and he didn't know who was to share how much responsibility. So that is the reason why those who are God-fearing among the Muslims, they do not hasten to condemn him outright. They think that perhaps his decision was wrong, but his intention was not distorted. So we are not the judge. Allah is better judge. Why not leave it to Allah, and why to bother about sitting on the place of a judgment where you are not required to sit? So to be on the safe side, you behave at least like an agnostic. You say, we don't know much and the history is distorted. This is what I've been trying to do all the time. Whenever this question was raised to me, I always remained non-committal, and I told Ahmadi, there is a difficult issue. Allah would never ask us this question on the day of resurrection. Why did you not decide between Muawiyah and Ali? Allah would definitely ask if we decide and decide wrongly. But who are you to decide on such issues?
You may not be judging, but drawing inferences and relating principles, for instance, we at this time are very much committed, and we know it, that once a Khalifa has been elected rightly, then anyone, whatever the differences may be, anyone who revolts against that Khalifa, it just doesn't stand on the reason that we would accept his rejection.
That is correct, but this is after everything has clarified and precipitated. There is a lot of difference between this situation and that situation. And then to call it a revolt would be only if one accepts it. If one accepts a Khalifa and then walks out of the fold, that is called revolt. But when the system is not very clear, when a large party from among the companions of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is siding with the other side, and a division is not a marginal division, but situated more in the middle, then how can you rise above human levels and decide, see like a God and see things as if everything is very clear? So give that margin to Hazrat Muawiyah.
So that we come to this conclusion that the institution of Khilafat till that time, or the process of election and how the Khilafat should be established, was not clear till then.
Was not precipitated in so many words. And also I see, even if it had been precipitated, this much is very clear from the demand of Hazrat Muawiyah that I am ready to accept provided you do this. This is in my view a most fundamental part of the dispensation of justice. So that shows that in principle he agreed that if no other barrier is in the way, the election by a few in the center of Islam can be held good. Through implication, he accepted this principle because he never raised this question. Pardon? The point is that throughout that debate, he did not even once mention the question of his being absent or so many Muslims being away. Hundreds of thousands of Muslims being away, and they are not sending their representation to Medina. This question was never even remotely debated at that time. That shows that the election by a few in the capital was not an issue of debate. The question was a different question altogether. That what happened previous to this, in that some people behaved mischievously. And they also participated in this, and they are going scot-free still, and they are not punished. So that was what was bothering. So he did not got initiated at the hands of Hazrat Ali. Now this is a situation which is similar to Hazrat Ali's situation remotely, when he himself did not get initiated at the hands of Hazrat Abu Bakr, and yet he is not censured for that. Hazrat Umar, he did not get initiated at the hands of Hazrat Umar for a while. And Hazrat Ali, Hazrat Abu Bakr is well. I'm sorry, Hazrat Abu Bakr, not Hazrat Umar. Hazrat Umar went to him, and the Shias tell us that they went with all the preparation to put fire to his house and so on. I don't believe that. But time lapse is very obvious. And he himself was putting certain conditions. So I don't know. Allah knows his ways best. This is a very disturbing situation. That the same Khalifa who was late, about him conditions were put and others were late. The justice of Allah is just grand and very refined and very deep. And he knows his ways best. So why to decide on issues which are very tricky and dangerous? Just leave them to the history and believe in what you have been told by Hazrat Muawiyah, that the fault of Muawiyah, whatever it was not a fault demanding censure on our part or giving us right to call him bad name. Leave his case to Allah and think good of him. Maybe he was a mistake. He was not a conscious offender. But it so happened.
You have mentioned that the companion of the Holy Prophet was clearly paralyzed. They did not move in defense of the Hazrat Usman. One kitabs are published by Froze and Sons. I have not read anywhere else except this one. It says clearly that it was the order of the Hazrat Usman that the blood should not be shed for me. And he kept saying all the time.
Not only that, it is said by Hazrat Muslim in the Islam but still, if you read through, the whole situation is not satisfying. At least to me, it is not satisfying. I mean, one still boils in agony at what was happening. It was no small crime. That was the crime, in fact, which was responsible for the doing away of the Khilafat institution of Khilafat. So it is the biggest tragedy in the history of Islam. Much bigger than Karbala, in my opinion, in the sense that with Karbala, we have a very deep emotion involved. And here, it is not as much as emotion as the loss of institution. So as far as the long-lasting effect is concerned, it's a terrible loss to Islam that Khilafat was not there. And also, it is fundamental because had Khilafat continued, there would not have been any Karbala. It was impossible. The Karbala was a direct result of Hazrat Usman's tragedy. So it contains in itself the very seed of Karbala. This is why I am quite committed that this is the greatest tragedy that occurred in Islam after the demise of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa.